In the last chapter, you met Charlie, and you heard his story. Now, I want to explain how the world he grew up in became so dangerous, and why young people today face risks that didn't even exist 7 years ago. This isn't your parents' drug crisis. This is something completely different.
The New Drug Talk by Song for Charlie. Chapter 2, The Fentanyl Crisis Explained.
Dr. Scott Hadland is the chief of adolescent medicine at Mass General for Children and Harvard Medical School. He's been seeing patients and tracking this crisis for years. Here's how he described it in 2022.
This is truly an unprecedented time. We're at a point right now in the United States where each week, the equivalent to a classroom of high school students dies of overdose across the country.
Now, you might think, well, kids must be using more drugs. But that's not actually what's happening. The data shows something really surprising. Here's researcher John Epstein.
People might be surprised to know that youth substance use has actually been on a downward trend for 20 years. High schoolers' use of illicit substances, excluding marijuana and alcohol, is actually well below 10%. But their deaths have skyrocketed, and that's because of fentanyl found in fake pills and other substances.
When did this start? When did fentanyl show up on the scene? Well, it happened around the mid-2010s, just a few years before Charlie died. Let me walk you through it.
Since about the mid-2010s, we started to see this very potent synthetic opioid called fentanyl emerge on the drug landscape, first in the heroin supply, and then it started being used by drug traffickers to produce counterfeit prescription pills. Producers of illicit drugs who supply the black market for street drugs have shifted away from plant-based products like, for instance, heroin, to synthetic chemicals like fentanyl. It makes these drugs extremely profitable, and this changes everything.
Now, you might be wondering, where do these fake prescription pills come from? Dr. Elizabeth Zona is a double board certified physician in both addiction medicine and anesthesiology. She's administered fentanyl in operating rooms and knows what happens with it on the street. And here's what she wants you to know.
The drug cartels are able to synthesize synthetic fentanyl quite quickly in these makeshift labs. We're talking about metal tubs out in the wilderness with shovels mixing. And so by the time it comes to you, it might look real, but it is really very dangerous.
So how strong is fentanyl compared to other drugs? Dr. Hadland can explain it better than I can. And honestly, when I first heard these numbers, I couldn't believe them.
Fentanyl is an opioid that's at least 50 to 100 times more potent than heroin. Because it's such a potent opioid, fentanyl can kill within minutes, particularly for teenagers who may have never been exposed to an opioid before and have no tolerance built up. Fentanyl is so potent that it takes such an exceedingly small amount, on the order of really a grain of sand, the tip of a pencil, to potentially be lethal.
This is what parents really need to understand. These pills look exactly like the medicines that you might find in your medicine cabinet. I mean exactly. Let me break it down for you.
The counterfeit pills that are on the market today are very difficult to distinguish from the real prescription pills. They're made in what's called a pill press, and the drug producers, illicit drug producers, get the dyes, the stamps, and they put them in these pill presses, and they stamp out pills that look like a real Xanabar or a real Percocet. The most commonly counterfeited pill is what's presented as an Oxy or a Percocet, and it's stamped with an M on one side and a 30 on the other.
Those M30s, like the one Charlie took, are the most common fake pills on the street today. Dr. Zona explains why this has become such a massive problem, and it basically all comes down to money.
It's so cheap to make, and they're making these pills for cents. and they're selling them for dollars, 10, 15, 20, and they may have made it for 50 cents. But when somebody dies, that person who's selling them this, they're not thinking about that person. They're thinking about their profits.
Here's the thing that parents and kids both need to understand about these pills. Dr. Hadland explains it really clearly.
So many of the pills that people might think are real, that pill, more likely than not, is not what they think it is. It hasn't been prescribed by a doctor. It hasn't been dispensed by a pharmacy. And in fact, it's fake.
This is what's new. This is the critical information. Counterfeit pills that look just like real medications have flooded the market. This puts people at unprecedented risk of exposure to highly potent chemicals like fentanyl.
When I was growing up, we talked about the drug landscape in terms of a path. But today, kids are faced with a landscape that's less like a pathway and more like a minefield, where their first, second, or third step out there could be their last because you don't know what's in those substances.
Marcia Lee Taylor, formerly the CEO of the Partnership for Drug-Free Kids, has been in the drug education and prevention space for decades. She explains the difference between now and before better than anyone I know.
Years ago, if someone was using heroin, it would probably be far into their use before they would be at the point where they could overdose. Now, you can overdose with your first pill. It's just a different situation.
Fentanyl in the drug supply has completely changed the landscape. But there's other reasons why young people, teenagers and young adults like Charlie, are especially at risk. It's not just the drug. It's also about the culture they grew up in.
This is the generation that's very familiar with prescription meds. So if you were born in the late 90s or early 2000s, you had classmates who probably were taking some medication for learning differences, anxiety, sports injuries. And so the familiarity with these pills and the fact that they're everywhere in movies and pop culture and commercials, that there's a pill for every ill.
The other important development is access. It's easier than ever for young people to get a hold of these counterfeit pills. Charlie bought his pill from someone he connected with on social media. Dr. Zona has been tracking how these pills are being sold to kids.
These are completely fake pills. A lot of young adults in America are getting these pills on social media. Snapchat, WhatsApp, Discord, even Facebook Messenger. It could also be just from friends or, as they call them, plugs, their local drug dealer that they happen to know. Our kids think that they're real and they think that they're safe, and it's a deadly mistake.
All of these factors combine to change the game. Marcia Lee Taylor explains here what she wants every parent to understand about the demographics of the teens and young adults being impacted today.
It really is an equal opportunity crisis. There's no geographic boundaries. There's no gender boundaries. There's no socioeconomic boundaries. This is something that everyone is at risk, and everyone has a stake in making sure that we come up with better solutions.
The good news is that awareness about the dangers of fentanyl is up. In a 2024 survey of teens conducted by Song for Charlie, 77% ranked fentanyl more dangerous than cocaine and heroin. The challenge is that in that same survey, 45% of teens still didn't know that fentanyl is being used to make fake prescription pills. That gap between knowing fentanyl is dangerous and knowing it's in these fake pills, that's what we're trying to address. Marcia Lee Taylor gets straight to the point.
I think kids need to realize that even if it comes from their best friend, it's most likely not safe because the drug supply right now is not safe.
Madeline Hilliard is a harm reduction educator and certified EMT. She knows firsthand the consequences of the unsafe drug supply.
With illicit fentanyl, you don't know how much you're using, and frequently it is combined with another drug, whether it's contaminating heroin or contaminating cocaine. It's mixed drug use, which is extremely dangerous and difficult to treat in the ER.
Why is this happening now? What makes this generation so vulnerable? Marsha Lee Taylor puts it this way.
I think it's a perfect storm. I think you've got kids who are really struggling with a lot of social anxiety, particularly, a lot of depression, and an inability to cope with some of the big feelings they're having. I think you look at the isolation that's sort of magnified by social media, the sort of looking at everyone else's perfect life and feeling like yours is not so perfect. And then also the deadliness of the drug supply. And all those things come together. And it is, a massive crisis that we're in right now as a country.
So the combination of these three factors, potent chemicals, stressed out young people, ease of access, put this current generation at unprecedented risk. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about some tools and resources that can help families have open conversations about this new chemical drug landscape. Our research tells us that just knowing about these risks helps young people make healthier decisions and avoid harm. That's why in the next chapter, we're going to talk about how families can actually have important conversations about the new drug landscape.